On my birthday, my own mother accused me of stealing her $25,000 diamond necklace. My brother sided with her and punched me so hard I blacked out. They called the police. I lost my freedom, my home, and my name. But what they didn't know, I had recorded everything. My name is Lena, and if you had told me a year ago that my own blood would try to ruin me, I wouldn't have believed you. But that's exactly what happened. The people I called family, my mother, Vivian, and my older brother, Jared, didn't just hurt me. They planned it, step by step. And it all started on my 27th birthday. Growing up in Clearwater Springs, Colorado, life wasn't always easy, but our family home meant everything to me. My father, Martin, built that house with his own hands before he passed away. It was his dream and his legacy, and when he left it to me in his will, it felt like he was still there, watching over me. That house was the only place I ever truly felt safe. Until that night. I planned my birthday quietly. I didn't want anything fancy, just some food, a few friends, and my family under one roof, even if that meant dealing with Jared's arrogance and my mother's sharp tongue. I had always tried to keep things peaceful between us. I thought maybe, just maybe, things could feel normal, even for one night. The house was lit with soft lanterns. I decorated it myself. White flowers, string lights, soft jazz in the background. People came, laughed, hugged me, handed me little gift bags. Jared even gave me a pat on the back and a smirk that, at the time, I tried to see as affection. My mother arrived in a silk cream blouse and her usual designer heels, carrying a glass of wine like a queen surveying her court. She didn't say happy birthday, just raised her glass and gave me a nod. Dinner was served in the dining room. I remember the way the chandelier sparkled above the table, how everyone chatted between bites of roasted chicken and garlic bread, the sound of clinking glasses, the scent of lavender from the candles I had lit. It was going okay, until it wasn't. Halfway through dinner, my mother stood up. She tapped her glass with her fork, sharp and deliberate, and cleared her throat. Everyone turned to her, their forks pausing midair. I looked up curious. Maybe she was finally going to say something nice. I don't know why I still hoped. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she began, her voice smooth and cold, "but something very serious has happened." She looked directly at me. "My emerald diamond necklace is missing." The room fell silent. I blinked. What do you mean?" She held out her wrist dramatically, where she'd worn the diamond necklace earlier, a piece passed down from her mother. It was old, covered in emeralds, and she always claimed it was worth around $25,000. "It was in my overnight bag in the guest room," she said slowly, "and now it's gone." And the last person who was near that room was Lena. My heart stopped. People were staring. I stood up, hands shaking. "No, I haven't touched anything. I didn't even go near your room." "Don't lie," she snapped. Her voice cut through me like glass. "You've always been jealous of what I have, of what Jared has. You've always been greedy." I couldn't breathe. "Mom, I swear. I don't know what you're talking about." And that's when Jared stood up. "Just tell the truth, Lena," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Give it back, and this can be over." "I didn't take anything," I shouted. "Why would you think I—" His hand moved fast. Before I could even finish my sentence, he slapped me hard across the face. Gasps filled the room. I stumbled back, my hand flying to my cheek. I tasted blood. I saw the faces around the table, shocked, frozen. No one moved. And then Jared pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the police," he said calmly, like this was just protocol. "No, wait," I begged, my voice cracking. "Please, I didn't." "They'll find the diamond necklace," my mother said coldly. "If she has nothing to hide, there's no problem." 15 minutes later, I was being walked out of my own home in handcuffs. The flashing red and blue lights lit up the front yard. My neighbors stood on their porches watching like it was some late-night reality show. My body trembled. My cheek burned. But worse than the pain was the shame. At the station, the humiliation got worse. Officers searched my clothes, my purse, even my shoes. I kept saying the same words. "I didn't take it. I didn't take anything." But they barely listened. I saw it in their eyes. They already thought I was guilty. Some rich brat stealing from her mother. After hours of questioning, they let me go. No evidence. No diamond necklace. Nothing to hold me on. But when I walked out of that station, I didn't have a home to return to. Jared and my mother had already changed the locks. My phone buzzed with texts from party guests. Most of them didn't ask if I was okay. They just wanted to know what happened. I didn't reply to any of them. I had nowhere to go. No place to sleep. I couldn't stop crying. The only person I could think to call was my Aunt Margot. She lived on the edge of town in a small house with sunflowers by the porch and a kettle always on. She answered on the first ring. "You come here right now," she said, her voice fierce with love. When I showed up at her door an hour later, she wrapped me in a hug so tight, I thought I might finally fall apart in her arms. I told her everything between sobs. How they accused me. How he slapped me. How they threw me out. She listened without saying much, just stroked my hair and kept whispering, "It's going to be okay, sweetheart. It's going to be okay." But deep down, I didn't believe that. Not yet. Because what I didn't know then was that this wasn't some misunderstanding. This was a setup. A betrayal. And it had only just begun. The next few days at Aunt Margot's house felt like a blur. I barely ate. I barely spoke. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jared's hand swinging toward my face, heard my mother's voice accusing me, felt the cold steel of the handcuffs on my wrists. That wasn't just a bad night. It was a full-blown takedown. And the worst part was that they did it so easily, like it had all been rehearsed. Aunt Margot made me tea every morning and let me cry without rushing me. She never asked me to explain again, but when I finally did, every detail, from the moment my mother stood up at the table to when Jared called the police, she didn't look surprised. "I always knew there was something cold in your mother," she said softly, brushing a curl behind my ear. "But I never thought she'd stoop this low." "She's always preferred Jared," I whispered. "He could do anything, and she'd make excuses. But me? I was always the one messing everything up." "That's not true," Aunt Margot said. "They're twisted. But sweetheart, they picked the wrong girl to try and bury." Those words stuck with me. The next day, I went back to the police station, not as a victim, but as someone who had had enough. I asked to speak to someone, anyone who would listen. The officer at the front desk gave me a half-hearted look and told me to calm down and let things settle. "No," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "This isn't a family spat. It's fraud, theft, abuse. I was framed, and I have proof." That's when she came in. Detective Claire Monroe. Tall, calm, and sharp-eyed. She was walking past, probably heading to another case, when she stopped and looked at me. "What's your name?" she asked. "Lena," I replied, trying not to shake. "Come with me." She led me into a small office and asked me to start from the beginning. I told her everything. I didn't hold anything back this time. I told her about my father's will, how the house had always been mine, how Jared and my mother slowly began interfering with finances and legal papers after my dad passed, how they made me doubt myself, small lies, quiet changes. I thought I was just being paranoid. But they had been setting me up all along. "They used that party to make it public," I said. "To humiliate me. To destroy my name. That wasn't about a missing diamond necklace. That was about taking the house." Detective Monroe nodded slowly, her eyes narrowing in thought. "Do you have any of the original documents your father left behind? Anything they may not have gotten to?" I paused. There was a small fireproof box. I used to keep it in my old closet. Still at the house. "I'm guessing it is. Or they've already taken it." She made a note in her pad. "Don't worry. We'll start digging." That day, a formal investigation began. Detective Monroe assigned a small team to review property documents, financial transactions, and any records tied to my father's estate. I turned over everything I had left, scans of bank statements, photos of the deed, even my dad's handwritten notes I'd found in old boxes. I spent hours sitting with Monroe, going over every timeline, every conversation I could remember. While the case slowly moved forward, I stayed at Aunt Margot's. She gave me the guest room and let me help out with her little herb garden in the mornings. It was peaceful, quiet, safe. But deep inside, something was changing. I wasn't just sad anymore. I was angry. Not the kind of anger that made you scream, but the kind that burned slow, steady. The kind that made you fight back. One rainy afternoon, Monroe called me in. "We may have something," she said, sliding a small recording device across her desk. It was an old baby monitor, dusty, scratched, and a little dented. I stared at it for a second. "That's mine," I said. "It used to be in my room when I was a kid." "Well, it ended up in the guest room, probably repurposed as a cheap intercom. And it was still running." She pressed play. And that's when I heard it. Jared's voice, low and smug. "She's too naive. She won't even see it coming." Then my mother. "We'll pin the diamond necklace on her. Make her look greedy. The house will be yours by Monday." My stomach dropped. Hearing their voices actually plan it out, made it real in a way nothing else had. They didn't just get lucky. They planned to ruin me. "We're filing for a restraining order on the property immediately," Monroe said. "They won't be able to sell, lease, or touch a thing until this goes through the court." That night, I sat on the porch of Aunt Margot's house, staring out at the rain. She came out and handed me a mug of cocoa. "You okay, kiddo?" "No," I said honestly. "But I'm getting there." We didn't say much after that. Just sat together while thunder rolled softly in the distance. The next week, Monroe brought in a district attorney, Sarah Green, to help prepare the case. She was sharp, confident, and spoke with the kind of fire I hadn't felt in a long time. "We've got enough to file charges," she said. "Fraud, conspiracy, emotional abuse, theft. They're not walking away from this." And that was the moment I realized it wasn't over. It was just beginning. The girl they tried to break? She was gone. Now I was someone else. Someone they couldn't silence. The weeks that followed felt like I was slowly reclaiming pieces of myself. With Detective Monroe and District Attorney Green by my side, I started to feel stronger, not healed yet, but steady. We were building a case with solid ground beneath it. And for the first time since that awful night, I wasn't the one drowning in shame. They were. While Monroe's team gathered more financial records, I began remembering little things I'd brushed off before. Times Jared had casually asked me to sign forms without really explaining them. Conversations where my mother talked about streamlining assets for the family's future. It had all been calculated. They'd used my trust like a weapon. One morning, Monroe called me into her office with a tight, serious look on her face. "We just caught something," she said, handing me a printed statement. It was a bank document, one I had never seen before. It showed a wire transfer of $38,000 made in small amounts over several months from the estate account into one under Jared's name. The category on each transaction? Property maintenance. My mouth dropped open. "That's my inheritance," I said. That money was for house repairs, taxes, things Dad planned for. Monroe nodded. And Jared was funneling it into his own investments. I stared at the paper, my hands shaking. "Is this enough to prove theft?" "It adds weight to the fraud charges," she said. "And it shows intent." He knew exactly what he was doing. That night, I sat in Aunt Margot's kitchen, looking over a pile of papers I had collected. Bank statements, photocopies, emails I had almost deleted in frustration. Now they were puzzle pieces. Proof. "You know what I think," Margot said as she sliced carrots for dinner. "I think they never believed you'd fight back. You always tried to keep the peace." I nodded. And that made me easy to control. "But not anymore," she said with a smile. "No, not anymore." By the end of the month, the restraining order had officially blocked Jared and my mother from touching the house. I later found out they had already tried to list it under a fake company name, some shell identity with a forged deed. Luckily, Monroe's team flagged it in time. "They're getting desperate," she said when she told me. "Desperate people get sloppy." Meanwhile, I was still staying at Aunt Margot's, helping her around the house, picking up freelance work where I could. I had always had an eye for design. It started as a hobby, something my dad encouraged when I was a kid. Now it became my anchor. I began helping some of Margot's friends redecorate rooms, restyle small spaces on a budget. It didn't pay much, but it reminded me I was still capable, still building something. And then, one morning, I received a letter from Jared's lawyer. It was cold, formal, and filled with lies. They claimed I had signed away my rights to the estate during a family agreement the year before. I took it straight to Monroe. "This is another fake," she said without even flinching. "We already pulled the signature records. Yours was forged." I don't know why I kept being surprised. Every step of this had been dirtier than the last. But now I was ready. And so were they. The court date was set. When the day finally came, I stood on the courthouse steps dressed in a navy blue suit, my hands slightly trembling but my spine straight. Aunt Margot hugged me tightly before I went inside. "Go show them who you are," she said. Inside, the courtroom was colder than I expected, plain, quiet, filled with unfamiliar faces. But then I saw Jared and Vivian sitting across the room. Jared looked tense, twitchy, his suit a little too tight. Vivian wore her usual pearls, but something was different. Her face wasn't smug this time. It was tired, worn down. Detective Monroe sat beside me, along with Sarah Green. "We've got this," Sarah whispered. "You just tell your truth." The trial opened with Sarah's voice echoing through the courtroom. "This is not a case of family miscommunication. This is a case of targeted fraud, manipulation, and emotional abuse." She walked the jury through everything: my father's original will, the forged documents, the bank transfers, the fake company name, and most importantly, the baby monitor recording. When they played it in court, the entire room fell into silence. Jared's voice filled the speakers. "She's too naive. She won't even see it coming." And then my mother's. "We'll pin the diamond necklace on her. Make her look greedy. The house will be yours by Monday." I didn't look at the jury. I didn't look at Jared or Vivian. I kept my eyes on the floor. But in that moment, I could feel the tide turning. When it was my turn to testify, I stood up slowly and walked to the stand. My palms were sweaty. My voice cracked at first. But then I looked up, and I saw Margot's face in the back row, steady and proud. "I loved my family," I said. "I trusted them. I believed they wanted the best for me. But they used that trust to steal everything I had. My name, my home, my peace." I spoke about the slap, the arrest, the humiliation of being dragged out of my own birthday party in front of people I thought cared about me. "But I'm not here for sympathy," I said finally. "I'm here because I won't let them get away with it." When I stepped down, the silence in the courtroom was deafening. I returned to my seat, my heart pounding in my chest. Sarah leaned over and whispered, "You just gave them more than enough." But deep down, I wasn't thinking about the jury. I was thinking about the little girl I used to be in that old house, painting on the walls with washable markers, believing love was something you could always count on. And I promised her, whatever happened next, I was going to make it right. The final day of the trial came faster than I expected. I stood outside the courthouse that morning, breathing in the crisp Colorado air, trying to calm the storm inside me. The sky was gray, the wind sharp, but I didn't feel cold. I felt ready. This wasn't just about proving I was innocent anymore. It was about taking back everything they tried to steal from me, piece by piece. Inside the courtroom, everything was still. Jared sat hunched beside his lawyer, avoiding eye contact. My mother sat upright, lips pressed tight, her pearls still around her neck like armor. But even she couldn't fake her usual superiority anymore. She looked like someone who had finally realized they might lose. Sarah Green stood confidently at the front, delivering her closing argument. She spoke with the kind of power that made the room lean in. "Lena was not simply the victim of a false accusation," she said, her voice firm. "She was betrayed by the very people who should have protected her. This was not a mistake. This was a calculated plan to strip her of her inheritance, her home, and her dignity. But thanks to her courage and the evidence this court has reviewed, justice is within reach." I sat there, clutching my hands in my lap, hardly breathing. When the jury left the room to begin deliberating, I couldn't help but wonder, had I done enough? Had the truth come through clearly? Would they really see what had been done to me? We waited for what felt like hours. I sat next to Detective Monroe, who remained as calm as ever, and Aunt Margot just behind us, her hand resting on my shoulder like an anchor. When the jury finally returned, my heart hammered so loud I thought everyone could hear it. I sat up straighter, my pulse racing, my stomach in knots. The foreperson stood for the charges of fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, and emotional abuse. We find the defendants, Jared and Vivian, guilty on all counts. I didn't move. I couldn't. It took a full breath, maybe two, before the words fully sank in.
Guilty.
They said guilty. I looked at Monroe. She gave me a slow nod. Sarah smiled softly, pride in her eyes. And behind me, I heard Aunt Margot exhale, like she'd been holding her breath for days. The judge's voice echoed through the courtroom. Jared is sentenced to 8 years in state prison. Vivian is sentenced to 10 years for her role in orchestrating the scheme, including property fraud, identity falsification, and emotional harm inflicted on the victim. The judge ordered that all stolen assets, including the house and misused inheritance funds, be returned to me. Every dollar Jared siphoned would be repaid. Every document forged was now void. I watched as my brother was handcuffed, head down, no words left. My mother didn't cry. She didn't protest. But her face cracked for the first time, her mask slipping as reality hit her. I didn't look away. I didn't need to anymore. Outside the courtroom, Monroe turned to me. They got what they deserved. I nodded slowly, tears threatening to rise. Thanks to you. She shook her head. Thanks to you. You never gave up. When I returned to the family home, it felt like stepping into a memory I wasn't sure still existed. The grass was overgrown, the room silent, the air stale. But it was mine again. Every creak in the floorboards, every mark on the walls, it all belonged to me. The first thing I did was open all the windows and let the light pour in. Then I got to work. I painted the rooms in warm earth tones, replaced the heavy curtains with soft linen, filled the shelves with books, candles, and framed pictures of my father. I wanted to restore the soul of the house, not erase the past, but reclaim it. The home my dad left me wasn't just standing again, it was breathing again. I hired a financial advisor to help manage the funds returned to me. Slowly, I rebuilt the savings Jared had drained. I opened a small business, home staging and redesign, turning my love for interiors into something real. At first, it was just a few clients referred by Aunt Margot, but word spread fast. Within months, I had a waiting list. It felt good to create beauty again, to walk into a space and see potential, to help others feel the comfort I had fought so hard to get back. Detective Monroe still checked in from time to time. She never stayed long, just a quick call or a cup of coffee at my kitchen table. But every time she left, I felt that same calm she always carried with her, like maybe I could finally breathe easy. Aunt Margot remained my rock. One afternoon, she came over with a basket of fresh herbs from her garden. We sat on the back porch sipping lemonade as the sun set over the trees. "You did it," she said quietly. "You fought for yourself. Your father would be proud." I smiled, looking out at the yard. I think he already knows. The nightmares didn't vanish overnight. Some nights I'd still wake up sweating, my mind replaying that awful birthday over and over. But those moments came less and less. And each time, I reminded myself I survived them. I beat them. And I built something stronger from it. 6 months after the trial, I hosted a quiet dinner at my home. Nothing fancy, just good food, soft music, and a small circle of people who had stood by me. Aunt Margot, a few clients turned friends, and Detective Monroe in jeans and a cardigan, smiling more than I'd ever seen her. As we sat in the garden under paper lanterns, laughter rising with the breeze, I looked around and felt something I hadn't in a long time: peace. Later that night, when the guests had gone and the stars filled the sky, I sat alone on the back steps with a cup of tea. I looked up, tears finally spilling down my cheeks, not from pain, but from relief. I whispered to the night, "I kept it, Dad. I kept the house. I kept your name. And I'm finally free." This wasn't the life I thought I'd have, but it was mine. Every scar, every fight, every victory, I earned all of it. My name is Lena, and I am no one's victim.